folks, it's that time of year that I need to change the oil in the outboard motor. On every outboard motor, there's a recommended time period in regards to when you change that oil. On this particular motor, the 300 Mercury 4-stroke, it's every 100 hours or at least once a year. And it's an easy process that you can do in your garage, and you're gonna save some money yourself as well. So let me show you how we're gonna do this. First off, what we want to do is we want to adjust the motor in regards to trimming it up to make sure any oil that would be in the crankcase, that all that oil gets into the crankcase. So I'm going to trim this motor up, and we're going to let it set for a minute or so to make sure that all the oil is drained into the crankcase, so nothing's sitting in the cylinder heads or any place else. So we're going to bring that all the way up, and we're going to let that sit. All right, now we want to lower that motor down all the way into the down position. So now we can remove the oil. And on the this side of the motor is where the oil drain is located. All right, I'm going to take a 5/8 inch socket here. And typically I'd like to use a deep well socket because then I can get way back onto that. Now take the wrench there, pop that on. And again, just, okay, we've loosened it up there. Now what I want to do, okay, it's finger loose. Now I'm going to put the hose on it. We're going to slide that hose on there, and you get yourself enough so you can get it away from the motor and down into the drain pan. I'm going to move the drain pan over here, directly underneath it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly turn this until I see the oil starting to come out. It's a little bit awkward, but see right there, that's all the farther you want to turn it. And we're going to let that drain out into the oil pan. And it's going to take a little bit. Obviously there's 7 quarts of oil in this motor, so we'll put that down in here and let it drain. All right, now on the port side of the engine, you want to locate where the oil filter is, and you can see that right here. You need to have the appropriate tools, so what we have here is an oil filter socket of the appropriate size, so you can put that on like that to easily remove that filter. And then below that filter, you can see the yellow button right here. That's the drain for any oil that's in the oil filter itself. So what you want to do is simply loosen that up. Okay, and it's kind of pressure fit in there. So we're going to pop that out. All right, put that in a spot that you don't lose it. And then you need the appropriate size oil line drain that goes over that drain spout. So you slide that on like there, have a container to catch that oil. And then what we'll do is we're going to slowly loosen that oil filter up. You don't want to do it too fast, and as it cracks open, that will drain the existing oil that's there. Get it loose enough, and then by hand, you just simply undo that oil filter. And any oil that's in there will be caught in the sump where the oil filter goes, and that will drain out. Okay. All right, so it looks like we got most of the oil out when we drain it out of the crankcase. So we're good there. All right, now next thing is to put the new oil filter on. All right, here's the old oil filter. We want to install the new oil filter. So what you want to do, take it out, obviously inspect it, make sure everything's fine. But see this gasket here? We want to make sure we get some nice clean oil on this gasket, so when we put it back onto the outboard motor, we get a nice clean seal for that oil filter to the motor. So what I like to do is simply take some oil, you can put it on your finger just like that, and then with that fresh clean oil, just put a nice coat on that O-ring that's around there, that rubber seal, and put that oil filter back on. So we're going to go do that. And what you want to do is get it in there, get it adjusted, and you can kind of just with your fingers lightly thread that oil filter on till you feel it getting it nice and snug. Okay, and what I like to do is tighten it up as much as I can with my hands. All right. And then wipe that off. We'll take the oil filter socket and then give it a couple turns with that. So you want it nice and firm and seated so you don't have to worry about any oil leakage or anything like that. So there we go, we got it nice and firm on there. We'll pop that off. And then remove the drain hose from the sump there. That would catch the oil when you pull that filter off. So we want to remove that. I'm going to just wipe that off a little bit. So that's nice and clean. And then I'm going to take the yellow tab that we removed and push that back in there. And make sure that's good and snug. It's a tension deal, so you just want to make sure that's good and snug so it never fall out. All right, so we've got that replaced. Now what we want to do is go back over, make sure all the oil is drained out of the crankcase. We'll tighten up the oil drain plug, and then we're going to fill this motor back up with the appropriate oil so it's ready to go the next time we take it out next season. All right, you can see we're down to the last few drips that was left in this crankcase. So now it's time to take this hose off. And this is kind of a messy part, so I always recommend have a rag with you. I'd like to wipe off that hose and then slowly pull that hose off that oil drain. By having a rag in your hand, you can kind of catch any oil that's there, okay, coming out of it. So we'll set that down there. You can see there's still just a little bit of oil left in there, but we should be good to go. We've got everything out. Now you want to tighten that back up with your fingers. All right. Okay, we got that off. We've got it finger tight. Grab the 5/8 inch socket, put it back on there. And we want to tighten that back up nice and snug. Okay. We're good to go there. And then give it one last wipe down. So sometimes there's some oil that'll be caught in the valve of that. All set. Now we're just going to add the oil, and we do that through the top of the motor. All right, now it's time to add the oil. Make sure whatever motor you're working on or changing the oil filter and the oil on is, go to the owner manual and see exactly what it recommends for the amount of oil and the particular type of oil that goes into this motor. What's nice on these newer motors is that information is all right here, conveniently placed in front of the oil fill. So you see here, it's 7 quarts of oil, and it is a 10W30 that we're going to put in this, and it's simple to do. Unscrew the plug where the oil goes in. Make sure you have an appropriate funnel that fits in there, and then on this particular here we have the 4-stroke 1030 full synthetic we're going to add into it. This is a gallon, so we're going to dump this in and begin the process of filling this crankcase back up with oil. All right, we're on our second jug here. And once we get down to close to the bottom of this jug, we're going to check it to make sure we're at the appropriate levels. Okay, we should be about at the appropriate amount of oil, but we're going to let it kind of drain down into the crankcase. We'll let it drain out of the funnel here. That, we'll wipe that up. Put that back on there. Now the dipstick, which is so conveniently located now right in front, on top of the motor obviously, as well as in front of the oil fill. We're going to pull that out. You can see that's on a cable. And then you can see the yellow balls on there that indicates where the oil's at. And this is where you want to measure and see what your oil levels are at. So I'm going to wipe that off completely. And also there's a little indicator, as you can see right here on the engine, showing you what's the appropriate amount of oil based on these little yellow balls. You can see as long as I've got oil from end to end on those little yellow balls, I know I'm okay. So we're going to stick that back down in there. That drops all the way down into the crankcase. Push it back down in there, let it set for a moment. Then we're going to pull that back out and see what the oil level is. You can see that we've got oil on all those balls, so we know we have the appropriate amount of oil in the motor. One other thing you do want to do before you wrap this up, and you get everything, the cowling back on the motor and stuff, is whether you're on land or you put it back in the water, start the motor up, let it run for a little bit, and then check the oil again. That way you can make sure you don't have any leaks around the oil filter or any oils coming out where the oil drain plug is. So, and you're good to go. It's an easy process. You can save yourself some money, and you're all set for the upcoming season or when you pull it out of storage for the next time you go on the water.